In the last example, I showed you what it looked like if your code compiled and ran with no problems. Now let's take a look at what might happen if you get a compile error in your code. So a compile error is an error that says there's something wrong syntactically with your program. It doesn't follow the rules of C, and so the code blocks wasn't able to compile and link your program. So in MATLAB, semicolons didn't matter, but in C they're required. So I'm going to take out a semicolon, which is in fact a syntax error. I'm also going to change the message inside my hello world and say, hello world, it is time to program. Now I'm going to compile this, save it, build, right, to compile and link. And you'll notice now down here in the build messages, I see that there's an error. It says expected semicolon before return. Anytime it says error, right, and down here I see one error, one warning, the errors have to be cleaned up before your code will compile. So this program did not compile. If you have a warning, it's just a hint that something might be wrong, but your code will still compile. And notice there's a little red X here that says the error happened somewhere before this line. You'll notice that the error is actually on the line with the return 0, which is fine, but it's that there wasn't a semicolon on the preceding line. So what you can do when you get an error, if you don't see something on, let's say here, like line 7, you can look at the lines right before it, because sometimes code blocks might not catch the error until a line or two later. So this program didn't compile, but now if I go up and I go to run, right, my code will still run, but notice that it doesn't print my new message. It doesn't print hello world, it's time to program. It just prints hello world. What happened here actually is that this is running the last version of this program that it was able to successfully compile. So it's running an older version of the program. So if I made other changes, those changes aren't going to show up in the output that I'm seeing here. So that's why it's important to compile and run separately, so that you make sure that you're checking for errors, and so you make sure that you're running the most up-to-date version of the code, right? I've seen where people haven't noticed that there have been errors, and they've been kind of confused about why their output doesn't match what their code should be displaying. So always make sure that if there are errors, you don't run the program, you fix the errors, you recompile it, and then you run it, because that will give you a better picture of what the output from your program actually is. So let's go back to our code, and let's say we wanted to fix it. Let's say I'm going to go ahead and put the semicolon back on here. Now I'd like to rebuild and rerun my program, but you can see that the icons here for building and running are grayed out. I can't actually click them. I can't build or run this, and that's because I didn't close that command window. So what I need to do is go to where it's minimized, reopen it, and then make sure that I actually close the command window. Notice that as soon as I close it, now I have access to the build and run buttons again. I can build my code. Now there are 0 errors and 0 warnings. I can run it, and now I see my revised output.